Did you know that Manchester United has a long history of having Wonderkids? Even before the First World War, each new player brings excitement about who could be the next Charlton, Giggs, Beckham, or Scholes. But how about we take a look at the last 10 United Wonderkids? Starting with the kid who was banned from winning trophies by his boyhood club. It all started when coach Erik ten Hag named Kobby Mainoo in United's starting 11 against Charlton Athletic in the Carabao Cup in January 2023. Fans immediately found themselves Googling Kobby's name. Who was he? Why was he being compared to Paul Pogba? And what role did he have in the future of England's most successful club? Many questions were asked, and the answers were pretty clear. Mainoo is one of the best talents to come from their youth setup. As many can remember, the Stockport-born player is the latest talent from United's youth ranks. He made the first Premier League start with a composed performance against Everton after returning from an injury sustained during the club's preseason tour in the United States. Mainoo has never looked back ever since, and it seems as though his coach back in the day knew from the get-go that he was destined for success and allowed him to use his weaker foot in training. He was 5 when he first came down and started, and in a couple of weeks, myself and another volunteer at the time just looked at each other and said, "Wow, this kid is unbelievable." Volunteer coach Steve Vare said, "We put some rules in games where he could only score with his left foot. He had to pass to a teammate, all sorts of different things just to challenge and develop him." But none of that mattered to the kid, who seemed to be on a mission, because just a few years later, he found himself representing the Three Lions in various international tournaments, including the 2024 Euros, where he became one of the youngest players to start a European Championship final. Well, the kid is just 19, and like United's head of academy Nick Cox admitted, he moved much faster than we thought. Who knows, he might even turn out to be one of the greatest players in United's history. But Kobby isn't the only kid in the spotlight. I mean, everyone seems to be talking about the Argentinian kid who appears to be following in a long line of Red Devils youngsters. And that's none other than Alejandro Garnacho. Garnacho joined United's academy from Atletico Madrid back in October 2020, with the Reds paying about £420,000 for the Spaniard. It may not seem much compared to the other transfers, but it was a lot, considering he was only 16 and hadn't played a single senior minute. Garnacho immediately hit the ground running and had racked up 15 goals in 86 appearances for United. However, it hasn't always been smooth sailing between the 20-year-old and ten Hag, especially after he appeared to be criticized following a game against Bournemouth. Garnacho reportedly liked a tweet criticizing ten Hag, which prompted immediate criticism from the Dutch manager. As if that's not enough, the winger didn't see much playing time for Argentina in the Copa America. You see, Garnacho is actually one of Europe's most dynamic young stars. Look at this wonderful goal against Everton, a rocket of a bicycle kick to the top corner of Pickford's post. However, it seems Garnacho's breakout has not happened for Argentina just yet. Since making his debut just over a year ago, he's earned only 6 caps, including a brief appearance in a 3-0 victory over Bolivia in the World Cup qualifiers. A simple reason behind Garnacho's struggle to secure a spot in the Argentina's 11 is clear: the team is exceptionally strong. Just look at the 2024 Copa America. Argentina had won the trophy once again. However, some argue he spent so much of his youth outside of Argentina, which makes him much of an outsider, while others think his admiration for Ronaldo might be an issue. But Argentine coach Lionel Scaloni sees it differently, saying, "We have high hopes for him. He's quick and does well in one-on-one situations. We just want him to do it more consistently." But there's something about the football prodigy from Denmark that nobody can explain. Not even his coach believed he was going to be a star, yet Rasmus Hojlund proved him wrong. You know what? Don't take my word for it. Here's what his former sporting director at an amateur club, Christian Muru, had to say. Rasmus wasn't a standout. There were other players his age just as good. He was playing at the youth level because he was physically bigger and more developed in that way, but there was no single moment when we thought he was going to be a star. A coach saying that about his player shows how underrated Hojlund was. Maybe massively underrated is the right word, but I really don't think his development should have been a surprise, because if genetics mean anything, they should have seen it coming. Hojlund's dad, Anders Hojlund, was a player and a Denmark striker who really didn't see the success his son had. He played just 3 times for B93 during the 1998-99 season, which was the peak of his career, before retiring shortly after. The kid, who comes from the outskirts of Copenhagen, started playing football with the local team and had a brief spell at Brøndby before joining Copenhagen as a teenager. He made his debut at 17 in October 2020, where he played 4 times in the Danish Superliga that season. That was just the start of what was to come, because a few years later, United eventually signed him on a 5-year deal. He scored his first goal for the team just 2 months later with a lot of struggle adapting to the Premier League. Rasmus had scored a total of 16 goals for the Red Devils and 7 goals for his country. He's just 21, so imagine how much more he could achieve by the time he turns 26. Speaking of 26, Marcus Rashford continues to shine on and off the field. It all started in November 2015, when he found himself on the bench in a game against Watford. That game announced the arrival of a football prodigy who quickly made a name for himself across Europe. Rashford is known to use his speed and dribbling to play direct football, but these qualities make him even more effective on the wings. So when you realize he scored a total of 131 goals for United, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. And he's not phenomenal in the club alone. The 26-year-old has also found the back of the net a record 17 times for the Three Lions. This guy has managed to stay consistent throughout his career, but most of the time, Rashford failed to live up to expectations. He had too many injuries at that point, which were uncountable, like he was indirectly playing with the emotions of the fans. On the other hand, it didn't take long before the coaching staff at United became concerned about his lifestyle, and this time, the media blew his cover. Earlier this year, Ten Hag confirmed that Rashford had missed a game against Newport County because he felt ill. However, footage later confirmed that Rashford was actually at Thompson's Garage Club in Belfast the night before. Rashford's off-field lifestyle was becoming a cause for concern, as just last year, he reportedly partied in a Manchester nightclub a few hours after his team suffered a 3-0 defeat at home to rivals Manchester City. Of course, he has to pay for his misdemeanors with a few weeks' wages, but he somehow finds a way to make up for his actions with his charitable works. You just can't help but love this guy. But if you think Rashford has seen a bit of scandal, then you need to check out this next guy who already is classified as United's outcast. You see, Mason Greenwood joined United at the age of 6 and progressed through the academy's ranks before making his first debut on March 6, 2019 in a game against PSG. Greenwood was interesting forward in terms of his position. When he aims to score, he tends to come inside with the main striker as they approach the opponent's goal. This tactic gave United's attack more options. His move inside would force the opponent's left back to follow him, ultimately creating space for Wan-Bissaka on the right. It's no surprise he netted 35 goals for United in 129 outings and remains the club's youngest ever goal scorer in European competition at the age of 17 years, 353 days. Greenwood was putting up impressive numbers for the Reds until he was arrested in January 2022 on an attempted rape charge. Although the charges were later dropped in 2023, the damage to his career had already been done. Fans, on the other hand, were divided on whether he was actually guilty of the charges leveled against him, but that didn't change the fact that he became known as Manchester United's outcast. Well, Greenwood picked up the pieces and made his way to Getafe in September 2023, and has since scored 10 goals for the Spanish team. As of now, Greenwood is on its next chapter, moving forward to the France League Marseille with 32 million transfer fees. But this next player seems to be out of the spotlight for the right reason, and that's probably because he has a point to prove. Ahmad Diallo was born in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, before moving to Italy at a young age and started out at Boca Barco's youth team. His club career started in 2015 at Atalanta, and it was there that the football legend Giovanni Galli spotted him. The former AC Milan and Napoli goalkeeper, who played for Italy at the 1986 World Cup, was already a huge fan of the youngster. But he knew the kid would need to get stronger to do well in the Premier League. He must gain a few kilograms to survive in the Premier League, Galli told BBC Sport. Meanwhile, reports said that United scouts already knew about his talent. According to United's website, they were so impressed with Diallo's skill, pace, and mentality, securing his services became an objective. And that's exactly what they did, cause in January 2021, Ahmad signed a 5-year deal with the Reds and has scored over 3 goals since his debut. If that's not impressive, then I really don't know what is. But hey, let's talk about Jadon Sancho. You see, Sancho was born in Camberwell, and because there was literally nowhere else to play, he learned his trade on the streets and back alleys. He is one of those endangered species of footballers who just wanted to play football, from Watford to City youth team. Finally, his passion led him to sign for Borussia Dortmund in August 2017, where he scored a record 53 goals in 158 appearances. You bet United wanted a piece of that, cause in July 2021, they reached a deal with Dortmund for Sancho's transfer. Sancho touched down in the Premier League and scored 12 goals for United until he had a falling out with Ten Hag. Cause after United's 3-1 defeat at Arsenal, the Dutch manager claimed Sancho was absent because he had not trained to the standard required before the game. But Sancho wasn't having any of that. He took to X and tweeted, "Don't believe anything you read. I will not allow people to say things that are completely untrue. I have conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair." It's unclear if he actually apologized for the outburst, but things were never the same. So Sancho decided to return to his former club after his exclusion from Ten Hag's squad for disciplinary reasons. After struggling with Ten Hag, Sancho left United to show his worth by going back to his old club, showing exceptional skills, goals, and teamwork, eventually leading the Yellow Submarine to the Champions League finals for the first time after nearly a decade, losing out to the Champions League kings Real Madrid with a 2-0 result. But there's something with these guys and getting excluded from squads, and Antony Mateos dos Santos seems to have taken things up a notch. Antony came from the São Paulo youth system and moved to Ajax in 2020, where he won 2 Eredivisie titles and 1 KNVB Cup in 2 seasons. At the time, Ten Hag showed a lot of faith in Antony, and United spent a whopping £95 million to sign him in August 2022. Fun fact, 15 years ago from today, with that price, you can get a CR7 who can do all kinds of skills and not a human fidget spinner. This made him the club's second most expensive player ever, only behind Paul Pogba. But unlike Pogba, the Reds were not buying a world star who was on the radar of the top European teams. They were buying potential. However, Antony just didn't fulfill that potential in his disappointing first season at Old Trafford. And if that wasn't enough, his future at the club was uncertain after his ex-girlfriend, Gabriela Cavalin, accused him of domestic violence. United condemned the allegations in a statement, and Antony was subsequently dropped from the Brazil squad for the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Right now, he's considered one of the biggest wastes of money in Premier League history, and pundits have called on the team to cut their losses. So, if Antony wasn't lucky, what about Jesse Lingard? Jesse is criticized by many and looked down upon by many. People think he's flashy, not dedicated, and more focused on his image than football. That's what a football editor had to say about him, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But that doesn't change the fact that the former United Wonderkid had quite a swell time with the Reds. Lingard joined United's youth at 7. And by the time he announced that he'd be leaving in 2022, he had scored 35 goals in 232 games for the Red Devils. Just like some of his counterparts, he hadn't done quite a good job of keeping a low profile, just when he was pictured partying with anti-Semitic rapper Wiley in 2022 and arrested for drunk driving in 2023. After 1 year without a club at the age of 31, eventually, in 2024, Lingard ended up in Korea. The club's name is FC Seoul. Football fans, if you would like to know what happened to Jesse Lingard, check out our video link in the description for a full breakdown on Lingard's situation. But Anthony Martial had a pretty good record, except that pundits aren't happy with his performance for the Red Devils. Martial joined United in 2015 for a record fee of £36 million, and this immediately became the highest transfer fee United has paid for a teenager. During his 9 years with the team, he scored 90 goals and made 317 appearances. However, Martial continued to struggle with injuries, which affected his ability to play consistently. Even before he left the Reds, it seemed as though he had overstayed his welcome. I mean, don't just take my word for it, it was all over the media. Now, we'll have to wait and see what his next move might be and whether he'll ever return to the form we knew him for in his prime. Right now, Martial is wanted by no clubs at the prime age of 28. But who do you think is the most promising United Wonderkid?